All right. So how can we estimate social behavior? I guess there are two ways. One is to count, and the other way is to estimate. This is in one of my revise and resubmit articles out there. Well, the counts are very sketchy. If you go into the Innocence Project website, they will say, as of last week, that 184 people in the United States have been exonerated since 1992. That's 184 people who have been exonerated by DNA testing where the Innocence Project worked on their case. There's another study by Gross, it's on the back, et al., it's on the back of your sheet. He counted 340 cases, but in his article says there were a whole lot of other people we didn't count. Mass exonerations in the daycare center rape cases, in mass exonerations that occurred after the police corruption, Ramparts corruption scandal in Los Angeles, or the Tulia, Texas case where the governor pardoned 32 people who were wrongfully convicted on the basis of a rogue cop planting evidence on, I think, 10 or 15% of all the blacks in the small town of Tulia, Texas. So how many wrongful convictions can we estimate? Let me say something about Gross's study. Gross counted 340 exonerations over a 15-year period. 96% of them were in rape cases and murder cases. The kinds of cases where biological evidence is left behind and can be compared to a sample against the suspect, or cases where there may be biological evidence plus, sad to say, a pretty good eyewitness, because the victim to the rape had an opportunity to see the assailant. In the mid-1990s, when DNA testing became common, and a lot of local departments weren't up to speed yet, they sent their cases to the FBI crime lab. And somewhere around 1995, the head of the FBI DNA crime lab reported that they had something like 10,000 samples that had been submitted for DNA testing. Here's the sample that we picked up from the rape kit. Here's a sample from the suspect. 25% of them didn't match. That's one hell of an error rate, 25% in rape cases. Okay. Think about this for a minute. Robbery. You have evidence in robbery. You have a grainy picture from a store video, or you have an eyewitness saying, yeah, I saw the guy running out of the 7-Eleven, and he looks, just like that person. Mistaken eyewitness identification is the leading cause of wrongful convictions, according to every study that's ever been done, where they look at a variety of cases and find out how many are wrong. There have got to be lots of people in prison who are there for robberies, burglaries, other kinds of crimes based on eyewitness. There's no biological evidence, and they probably didn't do it. But I still haven't answered your question. You want a number? I'll give you a number, 5,000.
Where?
Across the United States every year.
But is there a region that has more?
No.
So it's broad.
Nobody knows. The 5,000 is an estimate. I'll explain in a minute why I think it's a good estimate. But I cannot claim that that is an accurate figure. It's not based on counting. It's based on estimating. That's 5,000 wrongful convictions. The estimate would then lead me to say 3,600 of those are people who've been sentenced to prison. Some of those people who've been found guilty may have gotten, for crimes they didn't commit, might have been placed on probation. Now, what's this estimate based on? You want to ask a question first, or do you want me to?
Based upon evidence or
I'll tell you.
falsified, all that good stuff.
No, I'll tell you what it's based on. It's based on 3 surveys of people who should be closest to the action: trial judges and appellate judges, defense lawyers, prosecutors, and police chiefs. The first survey was done by Huff, Ratner, and Sagarin in the early 1980s in Ohio, in the state of Ohio. And they came up with a generalized figure of about 0.5% errors where the wrong person, there was factual or actual innocence, not a constitutional or due process violation. There were some problems with that survey, and so 3 or 4 years ago, Bob Ramsey and Jim Frank, Ramsey's doctoral dissertation study, and I think the first study originally began as Aryeh Ratner's doctoral dissertation, replicated that study. They did it again, but I think they did it better. And they got officials across Ohio, and they got very similar results. In fact, the results said it was a little higher, but it was about 0.5%. I was very excited when I discovered that that survey was being done. I had some money from some research money at Wayne State, and a colleague and I, Dr. Brad Smith, did a replication of the replication in Michigan 2 years ago, and we've submitted that article. The same figure. Prosecutors do not say it never happened. Police do not say it never happens. They give a lower figure than the defense lawyers. The defense lawyers' figures are pretty high. Judges come in between. And when you mash all those numbers together, not in any purely scientific way, it comes out to about 0.5%. I actually think that's a little lower. I think our total results are a little higher than that. If you simply extrapolate 0.5% to the almost 1 million felony convictions that occur every year in the United States, you get about 5,000 wrongful convictions. Now, is that good enough? I think it's a good starting place to say we've got a serious issue here. We have a serious problem, and we shouldn't duck our head in the sands. The prosecutors now are beginning to write that this is all a crock. Justice Scalia, they don't use such crude language. I mean, they're obviously writing it a lot better. There's an article in the Journal of Criminal Law Criminology by Marcus, who is the head of the Prosecutors Association, and he says that this is all fanciful. This year, any death penalty specialists here? Was it Marsh versus Kansas? I'm getting the name wrong. But Justice Scalia wrote an opinion this past June where I think it was Kansas had a rule that where the aggravating and mitigating factors were perfectly balanced. I think the Kansas Supreme Court said you've got to give the life sentence and not the death penalty. The Supreme Court said, no, if they're evenly balanced, you can kill the guy. It's okay.